Welcome to the Victors Nation podcast. I am your host, Jason Robinson. We are brought to you both by Big Banter Sports. Make sure you follow them on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and visit us at bigbantersports.com to get your sports news involving Big Ten football. So joining me right now is my brother from another mother, Derek McCarty. And we got the Ohio podcast joining us as well, too. Eric, Chris. Boo, Chris. What's up, guys?
Hey, good to be with you guys tonight. Thanks for having us on your show.
Yeah, back-to-back nights, Eric.
Problem,
Yeah,
Back-to-back
Derek,
nights for us.
yeah.
Can I just throw something out there, Jason? I just got to get this out of the way. You guys can be Victor's Nation. That's fine. But "the" belongs to us, and do not make that same
You
mistake.
guys tried to trademark. You guys tried to trademark the.
Technically,
We are the.
Technically, the doesn't belong to us, and eventually we're just going to be the Ohio podcast without the in front because that's going to get taken away from us too. But I digress.
But "the" belongs to the state of Ohio. Stop stealing it like you do the signs. All right, just let it go.
I'm going to keep the for the Victors Nation because we're America's team and we can pretty much do whatever we want. So
I don't think "the" is trademarked or copyrighted, and you know what? I'm not sure that the signs were either. So I think that all this is fair game. But
America
I need to clarify.
That beats the odds, not cheats the odds, Jason.
America was founded on cheating the odds to beat the odds.
Hey, he is a history major, I learned.
Minor.
I am as well.
Accidentally minor.
Accidentally, yeah.
What didn't you go to school for?
The list is not very long.
Yeah.
So as Jason introduced us, he mentioned his brother from another mother. Need to clarify, I'm also his brother from another father. So really, there's no blood connection at all. But we are joined here in friendship by two Ohio State fans. Maybe not super great friendship. Maybe we'll revisit it on Monday. Maybe we'll revisit it in a couple of weeks after emotions settle down.
Yeah, but, you gotta give it to the end of football season at least.
Yeah, but thanks for hopping on. Thanks for joining us, guys. But let's talk about what we've got coming up here. And as we get into this, there is a very strong opinion and nickname of your head coach, Ryan Day, across the Michigan fan base, for being born on third, in the words of Jim Harbaugh. So, Eric, we talked about this a little bit last night, and Chris, I remember you had more of an emotional pull on this when we podcasted before the season started. So, if Michigan wins, in your opinion, what does that mean for Ryan Day, and what should that mean for Ryan Day? Chris, why don't you start and answer that one, because I know what Eric's thought is.
He's choosing you on purpose, Chris.
You know what? I'm going to call it how it is. If Ryan Day loses this game to Crying Sharon and his group of wussy loserines, then Ryan Day needs to be chased right out of Columbus. Send him packing. Yep. That simple. If he loses this one, there's just no excuse. You cannot lose 3 in a row to that team up north, because the fact is we are not going to tolerate another 13 years of John Cooper. It's just not going to happen. You can win all these games during the regular season, but if you don't beat, as we like to affectionately call them, the scum, then you do not belong on the sidelines in Columbus. Cut and dry.
So do you think that will happen, though? So that's what you think should happen?
That's what I think should happen. Do I think it's what will happen? There'll be a loud outcry for it, but I'm coming more around to Eric's way of thinking that the outgoing athletic director is far too much of a wuss to pull the trigger himself. And for that reason, Ryan Day will have one more year.
He can go coach at Texas A&M.
Actually, my firm belief is that if he loses this one, both of these teams have a new head coach next year because both the old head coaches are in the NFL.
Eric, do you want to elaborate on your thoughts on the subject? I know we talked about it a little bit last night, but
I'll just clarify a little bit of what he's talking. So Gene Smith announced that this is his last year as athletic director. I think he's been here for 13 or 15 years. It's been a while
since our scandal.
Yeah, that's right. Since we had players pay for tattoos, and then Jim Tressel fell on the sword for Gene, and then, anyways, Gene's on his way out. June is his last month. There is no way, shape, or form he is going to fire Ryan Day on his way out, and then hire a new coach, and then hand over the athletic department to someone else with a brand new coach. Like, no, there's just no way he's going to do that. Same goes for our basketball coach, who I don't like at all. Like, I know this is a football podcast, but there's no way he's going to get fired either. And he should have been fired a year ago, if you ask me my opinion. But so there's absolutely no way that's going to happen, regardless of what happens Saturday. The grass is not always greener on the other side. Okay. We were talking about the other night on the Big Ten huddle about Penn State. Where would they go if James Franklin left? And if they didn't get the right hire, how Penn State could look like Nebraska under Frost really quick. And I'm not saying Ohio State would drop to that level, but I remember the end of Jim Tressel's era, which seems to be forgotten by our fan base. And there were some 3-2, 3-4 loss seasons at the end of his tenure. And those were forgiven because of 2002. That's the biggest issue with Ryan Day. He hasn't won the big one yet. He's gotten there, but he hasn't won the big one. And not only has he not done that, now he's losing to your rival. And so that creates this tension among the fan base with him, where a lot of people do call him John Cooper 2.0.
I think that if Michigan's able to win on Saturday, I think that the Michigan fan base would really appreciate Ryan Day staying at Ohio State as the head coach for as long as he is possibly able to. I think that would be our opinion on the situation.
I mean, but at the same time, we said the same thing about Jim Harbaugh, right?
Right.
When he was 0-4,
yeah.
We were like, yeah, give him a lifetime contract, and then he's won 2 in a row, and then it's my good buddy Sean, who's a Michigan fan, he had a point a couple years ago when you guys won that first one. He said, Eric, as long as you and I have been alive, and we've been alive since him the late 70s, me the early 80s, this has always been a game of streaks. Really, since the 10-year war, this thing's not gone back and forth. It's been a team takes control of the rivalry for at least a decade, right? And he said to me, this is going to be our decade. And I laughed. And now I'm like, I'm not laughing anymore. Like, okay, you have a point here. And so there's a lot of, myself included, who used to say, yeah, give Jimmy a lifetime contract. I'm not saying that anymore. He can go to the Raiders for all I care right now. So, yeah, I understand where you're coming from, in Derek, when you say that, but be careful too, because it's not like Ryan Day has forgotten to coach. The guy is a really good football coach. He's a great offensive mind. And the difference between him and Jim Harbaugh is Jim Harbaugh got to cut his teeth at a lot of different programs before he got to Ann Arbor. And Ryan Day, the very first game he coached as head coach at Ohio State was the very first game he ever coached as a head coach. And this is just not a place where that happens. Like, you come to Ohio State because you're already there, not because we think you're going to get there. And I think this fan base is, and when I say this fan base, the Ohio State fan base, is dealing with a situation where we aren't familiar with this feeling of someone who's learning on the job. And it doesn't happen overnight in college football. It takes a while. Now, it just so happens that you call it being born on third base. We call it getting the keys to the Lamborghini handed over to him. And he had a really good roster, and he's continued to win a lot of football games. But the last 2 years, he hasn't won the game. And so because of that, yeah, there's a lot of people in this fan base that are ready to, like Chris, send him packing,
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, and we get it too. Yeah, I agree, Eric. I mean, it is crazy when you think about it. Like any other program probably maybe wouldn't have an issue with that depending on who your main rival is. But if you don't beat Ohio State at Michigan, I mean, you're going to have issues. Essentially, it's the same thing over here too as well.
Yeah.
So I gotta go ahead, Derek. Go ahead.
And it's really, before you hop into the next question, it's really easy as a fan base that gets used to winning to get unrealistic. There's a couple football programs whose fan base expectations is to win every single game every year.
There's four of them.
Right.
Georgia,
right.
Alabama, you guys, and us. Those are the four.
And Clemson, I would say. And
those guys are just high as kites. That program that program was never anything until Dabo won 2,
Right.
I don't know that Clemson ever gets back to where they were personally.
They must have sold signs. They must have sold signs. That's the only reason they got back to where they were.
Back to, you mean
that makes sense.
Back to where they
we
were.
We broke them just like we're going to break
good.
Loserines this Saturday.
Chris, you're not. Just stop. So I got a question for you guys. And as a football fan, I want to hear this perspective as well, too. And Eric and Derek Rhymes, I don't know if you guys talked about this last night at all, but this is like the third time, thought there'd be more, that these two teams are seeing each other undefeated in a matchup. Do you, as a football fan, do you feel like you'd want this game to be moved to prime time? If that's always the situation, so I believe in 2006 it might have been, or do you think this game should always be played at noon?
Well, if you don't mind, Eric, I'll take it. I'm a traditionalist. I love the fact that this is always a noon game. For me, I just, I love it being the highlight of the football Saturday. And honestly, I don't know that I can wait until prime time to see this game happen. I told these guys I'm already doubling my blood pressure medication right now, and we're still 4 days out. Come on.
I knew one of you guys were going to say that. Eric, maybe you have the same responses too. But wasn't the 2006 game? Wasn't that pushed to prime time? That was pushed to prime time. So ranked 1, ranked 2. But you think like some of these games, like the last 2 years, they would have been pushed to prime time. Yeah, so that's what I'm kind of curious.
Put this thing under the lights, baby. Let's do it.
Yeah.
This whole thing about the Big Ten can't play night games in November because it's too freaking cold. Get the heck out of here. You guys, I'm sure it's the same way in Michigan as in Ohio. Our playoffs are going on right now. They play under the lights on Friday night in the playoffs right now. High school kids. That Big Ten thing, and literally Gene Smith used this as an argument. We have a lot of elderly people who travel, and they don't want to have to travel late at night for a game in November. Give me a break, dude.
I'll still travel to the late games,
Eric. No, put it under the lights, baby.
I'm elderly. I'll still travel.
To me,
we talking Monday Night Football. Maybe put this game on Monday night.
I'm all for it. Make it. I mean, at this point, listen. I wouldn't be shocked if the Big Ten says we're going to move this game to the second week of the season. The way the Big Ten's changing things around, right? So, and I know that that's going to make a lot of people mad.
Lose my mind.
Yeah, people like Chris would go crazy. They would be, listen, we've always played this game at the end of the season. Well, that's not true. Go back and look at the schedules a long time ago. That wasn't the case. And number two, that means that at some point, I'm not saying it's going to be every single year. I'm not naive. Some point, that means we're going to play back-to-back weeks.
Potentially back-to-back-to-back.
Yeah, but like, come on.
Yeah.
The rest of the Big Ten is going to look at that and be like, "Are you kidding me?" And of course, we're all gonna talk trash about it. But my point being is like, at some point, they're going to do away with that. They're going to say, okay, we need to move this game.
Yeah, and you know what, where it sits right now. So I agree with what you just said, Eric. I agree that the changes that are coming in the college football landscape, the Big Ten landscape, are probably going to affect what the game becomes in the future. And this year, this game is the last time that it's going to have this much on the line. It's the last time that it's going to be most likely a true elimination game.
Right, because
we see each other 3 times.
Yeah, because
Right.
no matter what happens next
year.
year, if we're both undefeated next year, again, when we play this game, it doesn't. Not that it doesn't matter; it's still going to matter. But we're both going to be in the playoffs.
It matters a little bit less, right? Like losing, it's a little. It's going to become less and less devastating to lose this game if both teams are out of
it's going to
walk-ins
feel
to the playoffs,
more like
right?
NFL. That's what it's going to feel like.
It will. But I agree with Chris on where it stands right now. That I love the fact that it's noon game. I love the fact that by 3:00 in the afternoon, I know what the rest of my day is going to look like. I know if I'm having a great day, or I know if I'm trying to justify all of the excuses that I can justify as to why the game went the way I didn't want it to go.
Give me your address. I'll send you some tissues now.
Chris is fired up tonight. I'm trying to pace myself.
What do you think, Jason?
Yeah, I mean, starting next year, I mean, kind of what you guys were saying too, and what I think, I really don't think it's going to matter. I mean, Michigan could end up playing Liberty next year in the first round of the college football playoff, or James Madison, right? It's crazy, but like I mean, in 2006, I mean, I thought that was a phenomenal game. It was awesome. Like, I almost had the thought of like this would be kind of, I mean, not this year. I'll take it in Ann Arbor this year, but like almost like a neutral site type of game eventually in the future. So I don't know. I mean, I like Eric was saying too, like the rivalry's not going to be dead. It's still going to be an important game no matter what you look at it. But at the same time, I think it's just going to look a little bit different. It's going to look a little bit different next year because we could lose to Ohio, or Ohio could lose to us, and we could see each other in the playoffs, and then there could be a national championship on the line, which maybe would reboost that rivalry as well too. We could see each other 3 times next year. Or years after as well, too. If they don't I mean, they might expand this, too. I mean, I think 12 teams is way too many. But I get why they have to do it as well, too. I don't know if it's going to be 12. But I think this game, we're about to see something really special. I think this game, this Saturday, it's still going to be a true rivalry, don't get me wrong. But I feel like it's just going to be maybe one of the last games where, like, everything's going to be on the line. That type of feel. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I will say this, though. I think there's got to be a certain excitement as we expand that 12-game playoff at the thought of at least 3, potentially maybe even 4 Big Ten teams getting in there and finally getting the chance to shut up the SEC with their "we are the gods of football" narrative. You know,
we're getting some prestigious programs. I mean, next year.
I may despise that team up north, but I think this is one thing that we can all agree on: is we're all sick of hearing about the SEC.
We might be in the SEC next year, Chris.
Yeah, no, not next
well,
year.
You know,
it wouldn't be for
that
a
would make
handful
that
of years,
much more enjoyable.
But when it comes to the SEC, you know, I appreciate the brand of football that some of the programs in the SEC play. The things that I'm sick of when it comes to the SEC is that it's hard to watch the bias that goes into the coverage of college football because it is very heavy SEC, especially Georgia and Alabama bias. But the SEC gets the benefits of the doubt. And I don't want to touch on this topic too much, but you heard the narrative come out that stealing signs creates a competitive advantage on the field. Alabama played Chattanooga this past week. Alabama has like probably 3 strings deep of top 100 recruits on their roster, and they played a football program that honestly, if you want to talk about player safety, that is something that college football does that the NCAA allows to happen that threatens player safety. And the SEC has games like that every single year at the end of the season.
Second
Where
to
we-
last
rivalry week.
all the time.
Yeah, where we're wrapping up.
It's like they're pre.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
wrapping up. Yeah. So and they just get the benefit of the doubt. We hear it. You guys have heard it. You guys don't play anybody. You guys don't play anybody. You guys don't play anybody. And the SEC gets all of this benefit of the doubt of, oh, they play in the SEC, so their strength of schedule is so good. And that's what I get tired of with the SEC is just the bias that goes into the fact that college sports is basically an invitational system, and the engine of sports coverage has the SEC as their product. That's what I'm tired of with the SEC.
ESCCPN.
Yeah. Good. See, we are friends here. We agree on a lot of things.
Somewhat.
But
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. When you're talking about those soft schedules for like the first 10 weeks of the season. I know exactly what you're talking about.
So the
What
one
do you guys think of your schedule next year?
yeah, we're just
Okay, I know you guys.
That's pretty tough.
I know you. Yeah, okay. I know you guys have I think Georgia and Ohio State, and I think Texas as well too coming up in your future schedules as well.
And
we
Bama.
got Texas next year
and Bama.
and Bama. Yeah, Bama too.
Yeah. So the one thing about this is the only thing I'll say about the SEC that just irks me, and and we can relate to this. Okay, when one of us gets to the playoffs, we're rooting for the other team to lose. The SEC's like, we're all Bama fans now, or we're all Georgia fans. I'm like, get out of here with that.
Southern charm. Come up north.
There are 12 teams in that conference that are riding the coattails of the other two every single year and be like, we're so great. And it's like, come on, guys. That's
Eric, I will
hogwash.
say this. I despise the SEC, but given his recent views, I'm a big Paul Feinbaum fan right now.
Oh, I'm not. That guy can go suck an egg for all I care.
Hey, just get. He's always all over somebody, and he'll
Give it time.
be.
It'll be Ryan Day.
It'll be Ryan Day.
Time.
Yep.
I know.
He was
Well,
all
if he
for
doesn't
Jim when this
win-
came out.
If he doesn't win this Saturday, I'm willing to sacrifice Ryan Day to Paul Feinbaum right now. So.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Well, that's what'll happen. That'll be the narrative will be anti Jim Harbaugh and anti Ryan Day.
See what I have to deal with every week, guys. See what I got to deal with here.
So
I just want the guy to shut me up, Eric. That's all I want. I want him to win the game and shut me up.
Who?
So let's
Ryan
to
Day.
shut you up. Oh, Ryan Day.
let's take this friendly.
I want him to shut you up too, Chris.
Let's take this friendly anti-SEC
Chris is right.
banter and let's funnel it into some the game talk. So we've got honestly, I think we've got at least two of the best three teams in college football, if not the best two teams in college football, playing this Saturday. And I think we have the two best defenses in college football playing against each other this Saturday. So I'll let you guys start, but when Ohio State's on offense, what do you think the matchups are that we need to keep an eye on, that if the matchups are going in Ohio State's favor would indicate you guys are sitting pretty good and probably going to walk away with a win, versus if the matchup isn't going in your favor, probably means that you're trying to just stay in the game?
Yards per carry. So if we're getting more than 4 yards per carry early, that's a very good sign that our offensive line is getting a good push up front. That would be something that I would keep my eye on. I think TreVeyon Henderson is really, the last 4 or 5 weeks since he's come back from his little injury hiatus in the middle of the season, has displayed a level to his game that we haven't seen since he flashed as a freshman. And if he can do that in your house, that changes the complete narrative that Ryan Day and Ohio State's not tough enough, right? So that's something to keep your eye on. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. he's a freak. He's not human, but he's not necessarily the one that will beat you, okay? Like, he's going to get his, but if Emeka Egbuka's running crossing routes and you guys can't keep up with them, that means there's something that we've discovered that we're exploiting on your defense. But all of that hinges on this, and that is Kyle McCord have a clean pocket and his offensive line protecting him. And there is still a tinge of fear in the back of my mind that Kyle McCord is going to crap the bed in this game. He's been steadily improving all year, but we have been so spoiled by quarterback play since 2018 that we aren't used to a game manager. I put that in quotations for those who are listening. And Kyle McCord, although his statistics are pretty good, they're nowhere near what we are used to in a Ryan Day offense. Now, some of that's by design. Some of that is by design in that Ryan Day said, hey, we've got a championship level defense, so I'm not going to allow my offense to put the defense in bad situations, okay? And I understand that, and people who watch football understand that. But that doesn't mean that Kyle McCord all of a sudden is going to go out there and win you a huge game. He had one amazing drive against Notre Dame to win that football game at the end. However, if you go back and watch that, there was 2 passes that should have been intercepted. And he got lucky, okay?
It's Notre Dame at the end, too.
That's Notre Dame's MO, right? Like,
I mean, went right through their hand. Yeah, went right through his hands.
Chris, I know you have a point to say there.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And as far as the matchups to watch, I really think the key to watch is going to be, as you mentioned on the line, but specifically our tackles versus their defensive ends.
Yeah.
Because we have a left tackle who last year was the most penalized player in football. And honestly, he probably should have about twice as many penalties this year as he does.
He should.
Because I swear he moves early on every single play.
He does. Like
that's not an exaggeration.
There will be a time in this game where you guys will see him move before the snap and it won't get caught.
And it usually happens in pass protection because it's when he's taking a step back.
Yeah. Every game.
Every game. So I think that is really going to be the key is, do we have enough on at the tackle to keep your ends from creating chaos in the backfield? I think another thing is you guys have a defensive back in Sanders still who's very opportunistic, and we have a quarterback who sometimes can be a little sloppy and likes to underthrow the ball a little bit. That frightens me a little bit. He has gotten better, but there are still times where he is underthrowing our receivers. Now, I think we saw that Maryland, kind of gave us a roadmap in the passing game of what needs to be done to be competitive against Michigan's passing defense. And that is use those intermediate routes because it seems like that defense wants to keep everything in front of it. Makes sense. But you know what? And like Eric said, if you get a Emeka Egbuka and you get that ball in his hands underneath and he has any room at all, he's going to be a serious problem for you. And then defensively for us, I think if we flip it around, I almost think that the matchup comparison is the same. How do our defensive ends do against that offensive line? Because as much as I despise your team, I am man enough to admit that is the best offensive line in college football. And it has been for a couple years now. So can we get penetration? Can we get pressure? Can we keep McCarthy in the pocket but make him move up to where our interior defensive lineman can have an impact. If we can do that, we have two very scary guys in the interior of that offensive line.
Three.
Who, if they get through, three, who can really make life miserable for J.J. McCarthy. And I think if we do that and we do make this a one-dimensional team, I don't have any doubt that we can stop the running game. You know, I know, Jason, you said something earlier about you weren't so sure if we could stop the run. I truly believe we could stop the run. In fact, I believe that's the strength of our game. You know, if you look at the running, if you look at the numbers, yes,
the passing defenses are better for sure on both sides. So Michigan and Ohio State. Rushing it is up there.
But if you look at it, a lot of times we've had one or two big plays in a game, and not big plays because it's not like last year where we were giving up a ton of huge plays. But for instance, Rutgers has the only play against us of more than 40 yards this year, and it was on a freaking fumble-rooski.
I know. I saw it.
That was a great call.
Great play call.
That was a great
Sean
call.
is brilliant. It was a great call.
I had to tip the hat to Greg
know,
Schiano on that one. You got us, buddy. That was a good one.
But I really think that our defense, especially the running defense, is better than what the numbers show.
So I'm going to push back slightly on Chris on a little bit on that one. There are times where our linebackers can get lost in the sauce. And that happened last year in the second half against you guys when you busted a couple big runs and Tommy was in the wrong gap. And that seems to be what Chris, I think, is saying is we've improved on. Our linebackers are much more sound schematically in filling gaps this year. And that has a lot to do with the fact that our defensive tackles are making things hard to create those runs. But I will give Blake Corum credit for this. That guy, if you give him an inch, seems like he's got like a couple feet of a hole. He can get really skinny as a runner and can get positive yardage where it doesn't seem like there's any to be had. And so I think this is the type of game where, Jason, you made the point about our run stopping, that our linebackers have got to play their A games. Tommy Eichenberg and Steele Chambers. And, both of them came back for this game. We hear that on both sides. Blake said it on Monday. I came back for this game. Well, so did our linebackers. They felt like they had something to prove in this game as well. So this is going to be, I think that's another matchup to really watch. How many yards per carry is Blake getting early in this game too? And are our linebackers in the right place, and are they wrapping up and keeping that to 2 or 3 yards or less per carry? If not, if he's gashing us for 5 or 6 yards or 7 yards, and our safeties are coming down and having to make those tackles, that's a bad sign for us.
Yeah, the team that gets 4 years. Oh, good.
It's going to be Blake Corum's birthday too, so.
Was he going to be like 36? I don't know. He's been there a while.
No.
True senior.
His knee's 63.
True senior. Okay.
So, Jason, let's get your thoughts. Let's get your thoughts on what we can expect to see out of the Michigan matchup here, offensively and defensively.
Yeah, so I was going to cover both anyways. So I think this game is going to come. So there's stars on wherever you look at. And I know Ohio State's deep, and Michigan's deep as well too. Offensive line, linebackers, that linebacker position group. I really think this game is going to come down to the trenches. It is going to come down for both teams' offense and defensive lines on who's going to be able to move that ball in the running game. Offensively, who's going to be able to move that ball in the running game? And is the opposing defense going to be able to stop it? I think that's what it's going to come down to. So you saw the second half with us last year as well, too. So you're not only going to see Corum, and I know you guys have other running backs as well, too, besides Henderson, but you're going to see Mullins and you're going to see Edwards as well, too. But this game is going to come down to the trenches. Absolutely the trenches. And I think both teams have kind of proven that, too. Whoever has more rushing yards is going to win the game. It's going to happen. So whoever is successful at running the ball is going to win this game. That's what's going to happen. And we've seen that the last few years as well, too. Now, Chris, you mentioned Mikey Sanistrel as well, too. I think what helps him as well, too, so he did play defensive back in high school. It wasn't just converted, into a defensive back from wide receiver, but he has played the wide receiver position a few years at Michigan. So I think that helps him determine a little bit who he's up against as well, too, and I think he has an advantage there as well. So he is tied with 5 interceptions in the Big Ten right now. Guy's an absolute stud, but you also got to look at Will Johnson as well, too. Played as a freshman last year and played as a sophomore. So we didn't have our best game in that secondary last week, right? But we made plays when they counted. So I honestly believe that and I can say this about I think it's a classic cliche. I can say this every football game. It's going to come down to the trenches, right? But I think this game is going to come down for sure to the offensive line and the defensive lines and what they're going to do to be able to control the game. Because Michigan's going to try to control the game with the running game. Joel Glad said it. We're a bowl constrictor. So we're going to keep our defense off the field as long as possible. So if that running game is successful, you guys are going to have issues.
Well, let me tell you, as far as your defensive backs go, you better plan on putting both those guys on Harrison because neither one of them can cover him one-on-one.
I don't think
I think
they're going to put up a show, but I was going to say, I'm just going to be nice here as a football fan. I don't really think, like Derek was saying, I don't think anyone can really cover him.
I agree with that. He's a freak.
I don't think he's human. I really don't think he's human.
He catches everything. We saw it in the game last year. Some of the catches that he's made.
I really believe what happened was many years ago, Marvin Harrison Sr. and Peyton Manning decided to go in a lab and create the perfect wide receiver. And they're like, you know what, Marv? I really like you, and I have a really big head, so I'm just going to let you have him, and you can raise him. Plus, my skin color's probably not accurate for that. So Marvin Harrison Jr. is just a freak, okay? I've never seen someone who can contort his body in midair like he can. It's not human. It's not natural. It's just unbelievable. And here's what's crazy, guys. He's not even. Did you guys know Julian Fleming, Emeka Egbuka, and G. Scott Jr. were all ranked higher than him?
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
That's
nuts. I know Julian Fleming came in as a very, very highly rated recruit. I remember that.
Emeka Egbuka and Julian Fleming were both the number one receivers in their class. Yeah. That's crazy.
And I want to bring this up too, though. So Kyle McCord, let's say he doesn't have a good first half.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen it in bigger games, but this is the game. Does he get pulled? Because I know I know in the beginning of the season, there was a debate between your backup and McCord, and I know your backup he's not all put together yet, right? There's some pieces missing, but he's still somewhat capable. Maybe not in this game, but in other games as well too. But you don't think that could be even a possibility?
First off, Devin Brown's been hurt. So he got hurt in the pit.
So he's still out?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we have a freshman as backup right now.
Yeah. So I don't even know if he'll be able to play.
Oh, so that's not happening at all. So let's say he would be able to play.
It's not going to happen. Kyle McCord won this job for the main reason if Kyle McCord made less mistakes. Devin Brown, the whole thing in this quarterback competition at the beginning of the year, Ryan Day, hey, I just want you to do the average things, okay? And don't make mistakes. Whoever made the least amount
things routinely.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Do the routine things routinely. That was what he told both of these guys. And because he knew, hey, whoever gets this position is going to have a ton of talent around him. He just has to make sure to not lose the football games. Just don't go out and lose it for me, right? You don't have to go win it. Just don't lose it. And that was Kyle McCord. And so if you watch him play, that's how he plays. He plays not to lose. But when he needed to win it, when it was the Notre Dame game, we have the ball with 60 seconds, we got to go, you've got to go win it, he did show himself that he's got a little bit of game to him. So, We'll see. We'll
Yeah.
see
So
what
what
he's
do you?
made of.
I know we talked about too, like in your pod in your segment, we talked about like you guys being kind of somewhat of a team like we were last year, a second half team.
Yeah.
Right. How do you feel like that's reflected on the road? Besides Purdue, so you guys have won your games. Obviously, you won. Nothing else matters but this game coming up this weekend. But like, just looking at some of your schedule here on away games besides Purdue, it looks like you might have struggled a little bit or not put up as many points as maybe of what you guys thought you would against weaker opponents. Do you guys have any take on that?
Well, for me, I think it's honestly, I think one of the big reasons we haven't put up as many points, obviously, is we've got a different style of quarterback than we did from last year. But also, and we've talked about this before, I think, and I like to use the term inside of his own head. Lou Holtz put Ryan Day inside of his own head when he called out the toughness. Ryan Day got tired of hearing questions about his team's toughness, and he was determined to run the ball. At all costs, we were going to develop that running game. And obviously, between the rule changes and running the ball so much more, and not having that C.J. Stroud caliber of Heisman talent out there this year, I think all those things contributed to a lower scoring average than what we're used to. If you look at the numbers, the efficiency isn't bad.
It's not. No,
It's really not bad at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, let's call it what we are. We as Ohio State fans are spoiled brats. We are spoiled brats who are used to winning every game. That's our expectation. We are used to 500 plus yards of offense in every game because of what we've seen going back to Dwayne Haskins.
Everything has to be perfect. Every play has to be perfect.
Yes.
I mean, as a football fan, that's how I am too.
Yeah, well, that is our expectation as Ohio State fans. So I think, and I do it myself, I think a lot of the criticism that comes, maybe not all of it is due. But the fact is, we're Ohio State fans, you're going to get it no matter what. So,
Yeah. I think to tie some of this stuff back together here, I think we've got a lot of similar predictions on how we think the game's going to go. And Eric, I agree a lot with what you said. To an extent, I think that Marvin Harrison has been. I think without Marvin Harrison, I think you lose to Notre Dame, and I think you potentially lose to Penn State. I think having
without Marvin Harrison, Emeka Egbuka's the one who won that. Who's
won Penn State.
Notre Dame. Yeah. Notre Dame couldn't stop Egbuka. But I know what your point is.
Also,
that because of Marvin Harrison, he gets a lesser defensive player, and he opens up. Sure.
And also bold defensive strategy by Notre Dame going with a 10-man defense on the goal line at the end of that game.
That was bold.
Call a timeout. Dumb.
But I think
you're saying dumb. Don't give me a Marcus Freeman right now. So,
but I think that this game is going to come down to what offense gets going when they run the ball. Right. You were talking about TreVeyon Henderson. He's been gashing teams the last couple of weeks. He's been hitting explosives. He's been hitting the explosives that you guys probably expected to and got used to seeing out of the pass game. He's been hitting them out of the run game the last few weeks. And that's something that hasn't been there. Now, my question, because last year you guys could run the ball on us early in the game last year, and then it seemed like Ryan Day went away from it. And I remember distinctly, I don't know if you guys remember this drive, but you got to like 4th and 2, or like 4th and 3. It was 4th and short, and you'd been running the ball pretty good that drive, and Ryan Day punted, and it was on the Michigan side of the 50. And I remember thinking to myself, just like I did when James Franklin punted one, James Franklin had 4th and a half a yard, and he punted after they'd been running the ball, getting like 5 yards a crack. And I'm like, what type of coach basically tells your team, I don't trust you? And that stuck out to me in the decision that Ryan Day made. But I think that if Michigan runs the ball and can control the clock, I think that it's their game to lose by turning the ball over. If Ohio State can run the ball and control the clock, I think it's their game to lose by turning the ball over. So whichever offense I think can get the run game going, and I think you're going to see a lot of similarities in this game out of the way the ball is being run. You're going to see the 2-yard gain, 3-yard gains. You're going to see the physicality in the trenches, the physicality of the linebackers, the physicality of the defensive lines. But which dam is going to break? That's what happened in the second half last year. The dam broke. A missed assignment here, a missed assignment there, and you've got Donovan Edwards running for like 150 yards on two different plays.
About the pass after
right?
CJ,
and,
yeah.
And either one could happen. And I think when it comes down to the quarterbacks, you were talking about the edge rushers. The last couple of weeks, that's been the spot that's gotten pressure on Michigan has been the edge rushers. And I think Michigan's edge rushers are a little bit better this year than they were last year. But to me, it's going to be what the interior of the Michigan defensive line does. I'm not worried so much about the edge rushers because I don't see Kyle McCord having the same threat on his legs as what CJ Stroud had, even though CJ Stroud is not a huge scrambler, and definitely what Justin Fields had. So I don't see the edge rushers impacting as much as I do if Michigan's interior defensive line can push that interior pocket backwards. I see that maybe not leading to sacks, but leading to the uncomfortable rushed throws that you saw at the times when McCord has gotten uncomfortable this year. And on Michigan's side, JJ does have the athleticism to escape the pocket, but is he a little bit dinged up? I think that's going to be a major factor. He's been a little bit dinged up the last couple of weeks, so he hasn't used his legs. If he's healthy, if he can scramble away from some of that pressure when it's generated, that can extend drives and be really, really frustrating on a defense. So I think it's going to come down to which quarterback can make a play here or there, but really I think it's the run games.
I agree with that.
I just want to thank you for bringing up the play there that Ryan Day broke our team with last year. You know that
after being so aggressive, for so
Right.
long, and then just
but you saw
up there, yeah.
you remember we talked about that for at least a week afterwards, Eric. The look on CJ Stroud's face when he pulled the offense off the field.
When the offense came off the field, they were devastated. But here's the thing that you might not remember about that. Do you remember when he came off the field what we did with that? We ended up punting, and it was not supposed to be a punt. It was
supposed to be a fake?
It was supposed to be a fake. And the center was supposed to snap that to the up back, and he would have ran for days. And he snapped it to the punter, who was like, "Oh, what?" And then he punted it. And that's what I was talking about.
But our
Jason.
special teams coach is an asshat.
That is why special teams scares me to death. Is stuff like that. Because Ryan Day was like, because afterwards it came out that was a fake. And it was the right call. Unfortunately, it just didn't get to everybody. So, but to your point, Derek, if he would have just went for it and had enough gumption and confidence in the offensive line to get those 2 yards or whatever it was. But for the longest time, Ryan Day's philosophy on getting those 2 yards was to get it with my quarterback. And what's different from that to now is not saying he doesn't have the confidence to say we're not going to get it, but he's trying to get those 2 yards in the running game. And that's where we were all as fans banging our head at the beginning of the year when it seemed like it wasn't working. But he was trying to instill in them to get to this point, hey, if we're going to win this game, that's how we have to do it. And so there's been a little bit of a change in philosophy. Like you brought up the other night, Derek, from our aspect of things, and not all the fan base has caught up to that yet. Now, will it work or not? We're about to find out.
Now, this is why there's that change, right? This is why you dedicate effort in the offseason, why you dedicate game plans to focus on sacrificing the fact that you might have Marvin one-on-one on the outside, but you're trying to establish a little bit of a different identity. It's going to come down to this week. And quite honestly, everything that happened, all of the rankings, all of the bad quarters, bad halves, bad games, anything like that doesn't matter anymore. Now it comes down to what happens on one day, one opportunity. You could have a receiver. You saw it in the if you guys watched the Packers-Chargers game or saw the highlight, you saw a receiver wide open to probably catch a long touchdown pass to win the game, and he probably catches it 999 times out of 1,000, and that was the one time that he drops it. So that can happen, and you don't get a second chance in a game. In practice, you get reps. In a game, there's one rep at every play, and so if you make a mistake, there's no correcting it. So let's talk real quick X factors in this game, because I think there's a couple, and then get to some score predictions, and then we'll move on here. So I think a couple X factors in this game is one, it's in Ann Arbor, and Kyle McCord, at least the Notre Dame game was in Notre Dame, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So he's at least got one road environment that probably not quite the same atmosphere as what this is going to be, but the game being at Michigan is an X factor that I think weighs in Michigan's favor. But the coaching matchup is another X factor that I think we need to give a little visibility to, right? You were talking earlier about Ryan Day learning on the fly as a head coach. That's what Sherrone Moore is doing right now. He's learning on the fly. And he's learning on the fly while also having the offensive line coach responsibilities and offensive coordinator responsibilities. So just want to hear from you guys. What do you think? What do you think weighs more in this game? The game being played in Ann Arbor, having the home field advantage, having the crowd wild and loud every time that Kyle McCord is trying to read the defense and trying to make plays, or the matchup of having an experienced head coach against a head coach that is multitasking a lot of responsibilities and learning on the fly.
I think that depends on who you're talking about. If you're talking about our left tackle, then X factor advantage being in Ann Arbor in that crowd. If you're talking about X's and O's and head coaching experience and being able to rely on the fact that he's got hundreds of quarters versus 8 quarters of experience as a head coach, advantage Ryan Day. So it just depends on where at in the game you're talking about and what's happening at that moment. If it's Ohio State has the football and we're driving and the crowd is hitting decimal levels to where we can't communicate, I'm scared to death Simmons is he's gonna false start. Like, it's just it could happen. We're talking about, you know what? It's 4th and short, and I got to make a decision late in the game. What would Jimmy do as he looks down at his WWJD bracelet? What would Jimmy do? I advantage Ryan Day. I just think it's what the situation.
What's the situation?
I mean?
Yeah.
And let me mention another X factor as far as the coaching aspect of it. I don't think you can discount the amount of pressure that's on Ryan Day right now either.
That's true too. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Ryan Day knows that if he loses this, the fans of Ohio State are going to be out for blood. And I think that is going to force him to take his game to another level.
Let me push back on that just a minute, because I'm actually going to compare him to Jim Harbaugh in that aspect. If you're a gamer, if you're a competitor, you know what I mean? If you have competitive nature, you're not afraid to shoot that shot. Okay? I remember that comment going into last season in the offseason when Jim Harbaugh went to media days and they were talking about what's going to happen now. And he says, well, we're either going to beat them or we're going to die trying. He wasn't afraid to take that shot, right? If Ryan Day is the competitor that I think he is, that's the last thing on his mind. I'm going in there to win. I'm going to shoot my shot. And I'm going to coach like everything's on the line and my job depends on it. and I'm just going to go out there and let it all hang out, right? If he puckers up again and he's not willing to just go balls to the wall as a play caller, then he's not the competitor that I think he is. So to reiterate what Chris said, yeah, there's some pressure there, but if you're a competitor, isn't that what you play the game for? You know, you like that? I think
you'd like to think so, but we've so often seen him shrivel up in the big situations and start playing not to lose rather than playing to win.
Yeah, but we've also seen him go into situations where he had nothing to lose, like in Georgia, and then we're like, what? Where was this? Right?
Well, right. But that's it. He had nothing to lose at that point.
So he has it in there, is what I'm saying. It's there.
I think at the end of the day, coaching's important. Like, obviously, but that's the strategy. The game plan needs to be implemented, and Jim's game plan will be in here. But for both sides, so for both teams, like, it still matters who the coach is. Like, don't get me wrong. But at the same time, it's the players. Players make plays. Will the strategies, will the game plan be implemented? And it's all going to be on the field, regardless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you make a great point. And that's why I feel like also, even though Kyle McCord might be inexperienced, if you look at everything else around him except at left tackle, there's a lot of experience on that offense that he can rely on and lean on. You know, there's a lot of this offense next year is going to look completely different outside of the quarterback and a couple offensive linemen, because they're all juniors and seniors, and the seniors are leaving and the juniors are going. So
yeah, that's another. I wasn't sure what the years look like on the Ohio State side of things. I know you had a lot of guys come back this year too. Michigan has, I think, 44 players that classify as seniors now. Because of
we had 21. That's a lot more than what we had. We only had 21.
So that's a big thing too. You know, and at this point in time, seniors can classify. They're anywhere from their 4th year in the program to their 7th year in the program. You know?
we're looking at a lot of draft picks for both teams next year.
For
sure.
Well, I think the Big Ten is going to have a ton of draft picks in the NFL.
Yeah,
we're gonna push the SEC again.
They will. Cool. Well, let's get some score predictions here, guys. Start with Eric. Let's hear yours.
Well, I'm not going to change it from last night. I'll go 24-23 Ohio State. And yes, I run an Ohio State podcast, so of course I'm going to go with Ohio State.
Hey, so you're only the second podcast to pick an outright win. We've had to make wagers with other podcasts on the spread of games. The only one that said no, screw that, let's bet on the game was Maryland. The Turtle.
Jordan, not at first though.
Give him
he was
credit.
Back and forth.
Give him credit.
He was still on the fence, but even the Penn State guys too.
Yeah, Penn State.
Even Dre Fame, not here right now. What's up, man? Like, he even said the same thing too to Penn State. He's like, you guys are taking your team. You guys are at home.
Yeah.
Number 1 rushing defense outside of James Madison. Like, how are you not taking your team right now? But yes, you're like technically the second team that is taking your team. Yeah. We'll see what Chris says. I think he's going to take Michigan. But Chris, what do you got?
Yeah, right.
I'm going to go Ohio State. I do think it's close, but I'm going to go Ohio State 24-21. I am not as delusional as your Turtlehead fans or your Turtlehead friends, though. I truly believe that this is going to go down to the wire. I think, honestly, I'm not going to be surprised if a late field goal wins this one.
Yeah, Jason?
I don't think it's going to come down to the end, but I do think it's going to be an extremely close game. And I'm saying that as a football fan just because of the defenses that I've seen throughout this whole season, basically, Ohio State and Michigan. So I'm going to say 21-17 Michigan. But I think it's those defenses that are really going to step up. They're going to keep the game close as well too. And we're probably going to see a quick game because I think both teams are going to try to run the ball and get that rushing game established after that.
Trust me, Fox will slow this down and get as many commercials.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God, I said that last week too with Michigan and at Maryland. Like, how many more commercials are we going to see?
Yeah.
How many more commercials
absolutely.
are we going to see? It's
So
depressing.
Eric, I can't even remember what I said last night for my score prediction, but I think it's the same thing. Did I say 24-20?
I don't have it written down. I thought I wrote it down, but I don't see it.
I think it's going to be a one possession game. I think
Yeah.
24-20 is what
That
I
sounds-
said.
I think that sounds about right.
So I think it's
And that
going
is
to come down
Buckeyes,
to
right, Derek?
24-20, America's team.
I will leave right. Yeah, I was just going to say I will leave right now if you go.
No,
What do the
Tw-
Cowboys
24
have to do with this
so.
again?
24-20. Defending Big Ten champs, 2-time defending Big Ten champs. So, I think this is going to be. There might be some people that watch this game and say these teams aren't as good as they look, because I think it's going to be a sloppy game. I think it's going to be a physical game. I think there's going to be a handful of punts. I think there's going to be pressure on the quarterbacks. I think there's going to be a lot of jawing back and forth. But 24-20 Michigan. Now, one last thing. What do we think the handshake's going to look like at the end of the game between Ryan Day and Sharon Moore?
I think it'll be very cordial.
You think so?
Yeah, I don't
You think it'll be one of the ones
handshake
where like a handshake and like a shoulder pat and
Yeah.
then
Eric,
move on?
Yeah,
we'll bring a tear to your eye, Eric.
there's no beef between these two guys that I know of, right? Like well, first off, Jimmy's still doing the press conferences, right? It's not even.
Yeah, he's still game planning. He can do everything up until coaching in the stadium.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't see why in the world either one of those guys would like shun the other one. I mean, there's no beef between those two. The beef between Jim and Ryan, outside of the fact that they have said things about each other on Big Ten teleconferences,
Conference calls,
yeah, like I think it's more so like competitive between each other is what I really think it is. Like you have a good team, I have a good team. I got the better of you first. You've gotten the better of me recently, and and the teleconference things have rubbed each other the wrong way. It's not like they go out of their way to like talk trash in public about each other.
I think so too. I think it's more media hyped.
I mean, some of the born on third base thing, it's cute, whatever. Urban Meyer one time had his wife call him in a post game press conference and ask him to bring home milk. Okay, that was a jab at Jim, right? Like it goes both ways, Yeah. So I don't think any of that causes you to like, I hate this guy, because he told everybody I was born on third base. Like, I don't think that exists. So that's more for us to talk about in the off season on podcasts, right? That's our material. That's what we have beef about.
Some people were born on third base. Some people have to steal it.
They got to steal third. You're right. There
Yeah.
The player hit the game.
That's what I say. Get better. I do foresee radios going in helmets within a year or two.
I mean, high school has them.
A decade late.
Are you kidding me?
Isn't that college football in general?
Yeah.
NCAA in general.
These rules, some of these rules, I'm not even the sign stealing one too. A lot of them are like really outdated and just great. Like I understand the point they're trying to make, but some of these rules, just even looking at them, like some of them just aren't even relevant or just don't make sense.
I worked in an athletic department for a year at the University of Nevada about a decade ago, and I had to. When I started working there, even though I was working for a company that was outsourced to do like sales and marketing for football and basketball, I had to still abide by compliance rules and stuff like that. And like, there is so many completely obsolete, stupid rules that there is no way everybody knows and there is no way everybody follows. And I played Division III college football and had to sit through that. And again, no one even cares if the rules get broken in Division III college football. It's not like there's anyone investigating those rules.
Let me guess your position. Guess your position. Were you a cornerback?
I was. Got it.
Eric's finally right about something besides the score, but that's
but
not gonna win.
but
Might be reversed.
NCAA rules are it shows the stupidity of the NCAA. There's they're so vague that there is a lot of times not a clear did this rule get broken or did it not get broken, because they're so vague. And don't get me wrong, there are some clear rules that clearly people have broken that they don't even care about. Like, you can't tell me for decades that players were not getting paid. You cannot tell me that
before NIL, those are level 1 infractions. This isn't even level 1.
You can't tell me that tampering doesn't take place right now every single year to get guys in the transfer portal. You can't tell me that Jordan Addison was like, you know what, I wonder what it's like at US. You can't tell me that nobody tampered with Jordan Addison to be the number 1 receiver in the country and leave Pitt and go to US.
No, I agree with you. I mean,
it's just
the NCAA. I've been saying the NCAA is obsolete for years. I've been calling them obsolete for years. The NCAA made their main concern is the NCAA basketball tournament, because that's where they make their money. That's their main money producer. That's their main concern. And it's the sweetheart deal they have with CBS, right? So football to them, I feel, is almost like they've given over so much of their control to like the College Football Playoff Committee.
Yeah.
And eventually, I've been saying for years, they need to get a commissioner, and the players need to get their own commissioner, and they need to become employees of the university, and it's going to clean up a lot. It'll make it like NFL minor league. I get it. A lot of people hate it. It takes away the pageantry of it. I understand. But what we have right now is the wild, wild west, and it's good for nobody. The haves and the have-nots. And I've been saying that for years. And now, look, we literally have conferences disbanding because we've got universities looking at the dollar signs and the reason why they're doing that is because
revenue share, nothing.
We have to get to a point where we make enough money to where we're still making money. That's what this is all about. Follow the dollars. That's what it's all about.
I agree, and if someone else is hiding it in their pocket too, it just doesn't help the cause. Like, I think some of these super conferences will end up controlling the football segment of collegiate sports.
Yeah, I mean,
if it's the SEC, then there will be no rules, because no rules will be broken then. You can do whatever the hell you want.
Yeah. It sure feels that way, doesn't it, sometimes?
Yeah.
But you guys don't have to worry about money. You got Uncle T.
Yeah.
Had Uncle T.
Hey, you know
Chris
what?
Partridge, really, Derek, you want to take this one?
Well, whoever Uncle T is and whatever he was contributing, if he was contributing anything, I really wish he would have done it to recruits instead. I really wish that some of these 5-star recruits that we've been in the top 3 of would have gotten a bag dropped on their recruiting visit from Uncle T instead of sending some random people to tickets from StubHub, if that is in fact what he did. Cheat like everybody else. If you're going to try,
and Derek, Chris Partridge, I mean, he didn't really have anything to do with the sign stealing. He wasn't endorsing it. It was just the fact that he wouldn't cooperate with the investigation.
Well,
he wouldn't cooperate
there's a lot of conflicting reports, and it sounds like the biggest thing is that it sounds like he influenced to the players what they did or didn't have to talk about, which the NCAA looked at as not cooperating with the investigation. So I don't know. Eventually we'll find out a lot more truth probably about what actually happened, who actually was involved.
10 years,
And in the end, if the NCAA is even relevant enough by the time they actually complete an investigation and decide what they're going to do with it, then we'll find out then. Otherwise, when a 30 for 30 comes out about this whole situation, we'll learn a lot more.
Their last act will be to vacate all your wins, and they'll become obsolete after that.
Just one last middle finger to Jim.
The good news is you guys get to win 1,000 games twice.
Hey, there you go. We can be the first one there 2 times.
That is kind of cool. Like if that were to happen.
So basically, it would just erase all the wins that people say don't count against whatever college football games were played in like 1901, when they played against like YMCA's and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I think there was a deaf school in there too.
Yeah.
Oh, please
you
tell
for
me
There
real?
that's
was
true.
a deaf. That
Are
I
you
think
for
there
real?
was. I
Oh,
think there was.
dude.
Yeah.
That is
What?
the greatest
That's
thing
but
ever.
Ohio State. You guys
And
are
we-
second with what 963, I think.
I have no
Yeah.
idea.
963, I believe. So I mean, you
I
can't
don't
tell
know.
me you guys didn't play like the School of the Deaf or
Oh,
something like that. I
We
don't
played.
Ohio
we played,
Wesleyan and Otterbein.
my
know. You only
favorite-
played a county jail your
Buddy.
first game.
we played YMCA Dayton. I know that for a fact, and we
Oh
also
my
played
God.
the Lake Erie Naval Academy. That
Oh my
one
God.
cracks me
Nice.
up. I'm like, I want to know what that even was. The Lake Erie
Yeah.
Naval Academy.
You be the National Guard.
I don't know what it was.
Is
man,
that the Naval Center over in Chicago, isn't it?
I don't. Well, I know this much. Coach
Not
Browns,
Michigan, no.
Coach Brown coached there.
Oh
Of
yeah,
of the Cleveland Browns.
Really?
Yeah.
yeah. So
Really?
it's got to be in Ohio actually, because
I think so.
Yeah.
I think,
It's got to be on Lake Erie, I would assume.
could be
yeah,
in
so-
Pennsylvania, but
Yeah.
It might
Yeah.
it might have been like Erie, PA, but yeah, that was a real thing. I thought that was when I saw that one. But we played a lot of the small college Ohio schools that are D3 now, but back then they were actually bigger than Ohio State, believe it or not. Ohio
Yeah.
State was just a little farms. Columbus was a farm town. It wasn't even
Yeah.
a city back when Ohio State started. So, yeah,
Right.
it's funny when you go back and you look at the history and then how, of course, football was more rugby than it was football. You know, the rules
Right.
were really weird.
Right.
And I remember the first game Ohio State played was against Ohio Wesleyan here in Delaware, Ohio, and there's a creek that ran there, and there's a story goes that they played until the football fell in the creek and no one else had a football. Game over.
Oh my
That's
God.
how it ended.
Right.
Hey, a win's
Awesome.
a win, all right?
Yeah.
Win's a win.
There you
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks for coming on, guys. It's been a fun football season
It
to lead
has.
us to this point where we're both undefeated. Like I said to start this thing, I feel like probably the 2 best teams in college football right now. 2 best defenses for sure. So only one team can win a game though. So everything's on the line this week. Potentially, probably the last time that everything's on the line at this capacity. So it's going to be a fun one.
go.
And we're
Absolutely.
last season, just a couple of games away of seeing a Michigan-Ohio State national championship as well, too.
That is the
No,
one
it's-
thing about the
and
college
so
football
if
playoff
something-
I'm excited about. Yeah.
So if something crazy happens, Oregon, Washington probably won't. I mean, Washington probably should have lost a while ago, but I mean, both of us have had close games as well, too. So you don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yep.
See what happens
Sure.
in the next couple of weeks.
Sounds good.
Sure.
Thanks for having us on, guys. We appreciate it.
All right. Go Blue.
Good coming, guys. Appreciate
Go
it.
Bucks.
Go Blue.
oh, wait.